This is the talk show that takes a no-holds-barred approach to politics, where truth and integrity are the standard and the Constitution honored. From Renaissance Studios, this is Champion News Talk Radio.
Good morning and welcome to another great edition of Champion News Talk Radio. We're brought to you by championnews.net, and we're your choice for the conservative voice. This is Carol Parisi. Our founder, Jack Roser, and myself have two very special guests with us today, Mr. Eric Odom and Norval Rose with Liberty News. And good morning, Jack. How are you today on this fine Sunday?
Oh, I'm raving mad.
Oh, Jack, why?
Well, I'm not going to read all these things, but see all this? It's about Madigan and how he's taken your taxes and spreading it around among the frogs in the politics of Illinois, our money. And he's doing it so he can be a powerful guy, giving big salary raises all around. We'll get into that a little later.
Okay, well, we have Eric and Norval with us today. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us here in good old Carpentersville, Illinois. And you gentlemen are both from Virginia.
Chicago and Virginia, yes. Virginia Beach, we have offices out there, and Hampton Roads areas. It's a great place to be, a lot of history, and it's a good place to operate out of.
Now, tell us, what is Liberty News?
Well, LibertyNews.com began 2 years ago as a site set up to help combat liberal media. Really, we kind of view our role in media as kind of merchants of information warfare. And we basically, if you look at the liberal media, they are spewing propaganda and controlling narratives, and there really is no counterpunch to it. I mean, there's a sort of preaching to the choir that we do really well on a conservative side, but we're not countering the agenda in a coherent way.
Well, that's part of what Champion News tries to do, is tell the people the truth. But, you just said something, Eric. You said liberal media. And there is nothing wrong with the liberal media giving information liberally to people. The only thing is, this is more of an agenda promoting media, the mainstream media.
They've ruined the meaning of liberal.
Absolutely.
I would really classify myself as a classical, not classy, but classical liberal.
You're classy too, Jack. Yes, you are.
Thank you. But they've ruined our lexicon of words. Take this business of being tolerant. You must be tolerant of, let's say, homosexuals. Well, wait a minute. Homosexuals are perfectly ordinary, great people. The law says if you say anything bad about them, that's hate crime. These people are on a high level. So why would I possibly be able to tolerate somebody that's so good that there's nothing wrong with them? In order to tolerate somebody, they have to be bad.
Well, you know what? The whole thing is the tolerance, progressive. Before the show, we were talking a little bit about progressivism. Progress is a great thing. If it wasn't for progress, we wouldn't have an automobile, airplanes. Progress is a wonderful thing. But the left takes these words and just manipulates them to message nice-sounding things that are actually really undermining our liberties and freedoms.
Picking up on what Eric said, part of our mission is to help conservatives, the right, to message and market, which frankly I think we do a terrible job at traditionally, because we haven't had to do that. We have operated on the notion that principle was enough. We're right, therefore right is might, and therefore it will win the day. Over the last few generations, political generations, we have lost our vision of how to message and market the conservative principles of life and living, whether it has to do with family or schools or sexuality or government or religion. We have assumed the position that if we stick to our guns, that therefore we'll win the war. And I think we've been overcome by that. And part of what we want to accomplish with Liberty News is to help to shape the message, and with passion and with principle certainly behind it, to be able to combat the very successful and very effective information warfare, rewriting of definitions, cultural definitions as well, that the left has engaged in very effectively.
Now, Norval, let me ask you a question, because I think it was Rahm Emanuel, the mayor here of Chicago, that said, never let a good crisis go to waste. You know, you have situations like very recently in the past with this Trayvon Martin case. And with that, that's a double header. You've got the gun issue, and you've got the race card.
And stand your ground and other things of self-defense.
You know what? But the way that they're messaging, they're creating havoc, and they're creating a crisis, and they create the narrative. How do we overcome that? How do we overcome that as conservatives?
You know, what you were saying with classical liberal earlier. Well, I actually have started considering myself a progressive. And that gets back to the fighting fire with fire. We have backed ourselves into a corner over the years.
That's another word they've ruined.
They're regressive.
Well, and they are regressive.
Correct.
That's
They're
absolutely
regressives.
correct.
They are the opposite of what they claim to be.
Absolutely.
But we're
Always.
painted as wanting to go backwards, you know, to some failed policy over the last 10 or 15 or however many years. But really, they want to go backwards to the policy of last year. And the policy of last year is bringing the country to its knees. And the same thing's happening in Florida, where they've derailed the conversation. In fact, it's not even about stand your ground. Stand your ground has nothing to do with what happened in Florida. That's not the legislation that was relevant.
In fact, stand your ground has traditionally benefited minorities in Florida.
Right.
And the studies show that. But the facts don't matter to these people.
So because they want to go after stand your ground in certain legislation, they've kind of forced that into the conversation and made it look as if we want to support, you know, people running through neighborhoods, self-policing and anarchy, and that's not the case at all. And it's all because of the way they frame the conversation. And our response has been, you know, to kind of play right along with it versus being strategical and pointing out where they're erring on, you know, the way that they're presenting the argument.
I think a lot of it has to do, Carol, with education of people. You asked, how do we combat that? We have to educate people. We have to open their eyes. And I think we have to show them that just being right isn't enough. You have to sell it. You have to market it. We're marketers and salesmen as much as anything. We have to craft the message and then be able to market it. How are you going to do that to the future generations that are going to be the deciding factor in the fate of this country? And part of what you have to do is help people connect the dots. There are very distinct dots emerging on this landscape of liberal lies. Distinctive dots, which you can find, and if you help people connect those dots, it comes together in their mind in such a way that I think they now have a message, but how do you market it to people who are Xboxed and PlayStationed and reality showed to death? How do you break
Absolutely.
through?
Young people are heavily involved in this thing, but they voted for Obama, which proves young people are nuts.
That's one way of looking at it.
Well,
Well, you're
They're
the young one here. Are you
misinformed. I
not?
just
don't
think
know.
they're
But they-
low information voters, and let's face it.
they're miseducated.
That's the
Open
purpose.
change,
That's the
open
purpose.
change.
Keep them low information.
Right.
The schools don't teach either morals or arithmetic. They're just teaching trash in the early years and misinformation later. Our schools really stink. As a businessman, I've hired thousands of people over the years, and I found that the normal methods of sorting out good employees are not sufficient. And there's a very easy way to find people that have had some kind of an education that you can build on. I'll tell you what you do. You give all job applicants a 6th grade arithmetic test. They'll take 5 minutes. Give them twice the time if you want. And you'll find that only 1/4 of them can pass a simple 6th grade plain ordinary arithmetic test. So we cut it down, the requirement to 5th grade. And we give them twice the time. And with that, we get 50% of the job applicants. We've got a vertical company. We've got a lot of engineers up here, people running a test lab, assemblers, machine shop. We got all of the stuff that requires good people. We got some people that just do plain cleanup work and lifting things. We got them all. So it's kind of fair to say that in general, the people that come and want a job, and that's a little bit selective already, but only half of them can do 5th grade arithmetic. We won't hire anybody that can't pass that simple arithmetic test because they're just too far lost on thinking. Why? We call arithmetic a morality check. Why? Because there's nothing in the schools that they teach has anything to do with discipline or right and wrong answers. They don't deal in that. So what you've got is people that have no standards. If you came close or were in the same block with it, it's good enough. They aren't educated, not morals. They rule religion out of the public schools. They don't want any of that in there. So largely we're dealing with most of the people in this society don't operate on any kind of a knowledge or a decision-making system.
And facts don't matter. It's how you feel about yourself as a student, how you feel about the other guy. Social justice has nothing to do with legal justice.
No, quit making me mad.
Well, I'll tell
I think you started mad. You're probably born mad.
We're going to go to break, and we're going to talk a little bit about schools and how about grading systems and a little bit more about Liberty News and crafting the message. When we come back after the break, stay with us. Don't go away.